Men of Reddit, what are the struggles of dating a very rich girl? I guess I had a different type than everyone else. We worked together and you wouldn't know she was rich unless you really got to know her. She worked as a diversion. Something to do and meet new people. She never looked at the price of anything. Had a $5,000 watch. Dolce & Gabbana glasses she would break at least once a month cause she's clumsy. Very humble. Very sweet and probably the hardest worker there. We were managers. The issue was that there was absolutely nothing we could do together that was new to her. She had more money and free time. Her bucket list was completed by 22. There was nothing new or fresh within my, I don't know the word, realm, ability. We got along great and I found out from a mutual friend she was excited to be with someone not using her or groveling cause she was Osudaku levels of rich. It was my pride I think that ruined it. Nothing she did. I had issues letting her pay for everything and I was unable to show her anything she hadn't seen. I stopped being fun because I couldn't wow or impress her and it got in my head. She was perfectly happy doing normal things. But it wasn't enough for me. I had to impress her. We lost contact years ago. I hope she's doing well. She was ducking awesome and deserves to be happy. She was always doing something. Constantly going on trips. Or to the openings of expensive restaurants. Or traveling to her parents' vacation house. Or getting tickets for some opening night or something. It was frankly exhausting. She had money and she wanted to spend it. And I just couldn't keep up. I say had because it was entirely her parents' money. She was in grad school, though she was struggling at it, and otherwise had absolutely no work or experience. Outside of a restaurant. She barely had any life experience either. Admitting financial struggles. When my wife and I were dating in university, her family invited me up to their cottage during the break between Christmas and New Year's to ski, skate and otherwise play in the snow. I wanted to go, but I didn't know how to ski, and had no outdoor clothing appropriate to be out in the snow. No ski jacket, pants or boots. I declined the invitation, but my then girlfriend was really sad and asked why. I had to admit I didn't have the gear needed and I couldn't afford them. She then passed it on to her family and when I visited them on Christmas Day, they led me to a room with 3 types of everything new with tags laid out on a bed for me to choose from. It was a wonderful gesture, but I had mixed feelings. I appreciated the gear very much, but I felt like a charity case. Also, managing expectations of my wife for travel and expectations with children's activities. She was used to jetting away whenever they felt like it and had her own horses growing up. That's just not an option for us. We do okay and we're happy, but horses are not financially viable. I dated a senator's daughter in high school. Everything was about keeping up appearances and we had to be careful where we went in public and stuff like that. Her parents offered to get me nicer clothes to wear when we went to dinner in public but I felt weird about it. Relationship didn't last long. I'm not good at being political. Everything was about the family's image. Everything didn't last long. If you're coming from a very poor family, as was my case, expect a lot of butting of heads when it comes to financial issues. I was raised very poor. Now I make a decent amount of money, but if I'm ever in a situation where I have a lot of expenses and may run into financial issues, I tend to panic a little bit and plan my spending extremely carefully. My wife came from a wealthy family and she never had to deal with financial struggles at any point in her life. And she doesn't quite care about spending a lot of money. Basically she doesn't think past the fact that we can't afford something. She doesn't think about possibly needing money in the future and that's where we always butt heads. In short, make sure you ask her to let you know before she spends more than X amount. That was the solution we came up with and it has actually saved us from a lot of financial trouble. Spending should be a thing you both agree on, otherwise it's not going to work out. Pretending to pull out your wallet when it's time to pay for anything, then asking, "Are you sure?" I married one. Nothing to do with my wife at all. She's a gem. It's my Mills expectations and image are always the center of just about every single decision. Phil, the real rich person, is cool as hell, though. I can't say very rich, but my wife and I definitely come from different socio-economic castes. Her family was upper middle class, and mine was just above poverty level. She just didn't understand the panic I felt when money was running low. She didn't know the dread you get when your car starts making a strange noise and you know you can't afford to fix it. For her, everything would work out because she had parents with money to swoop in and make it all better. In short, she never understood the struggle and wasn't very smart with her money. It's not even that she wasn't smart. It's that she wasn't the same sort of ingenious that poor people are with stretching every penny. Eventually, we both got decent jobs and managed to put back a good savings. And we both grew to understand each other's money habits. I dated a pretty rich girl. Her dad was a prominent lawyer, her mom a successful artist, and her uncle was a 1980s pop star. Honestly, they were great people to be around. They were old money and not snotty or overly pretentious. Yes, they had a big ass old house and drove quality, not overly flashy, cars. Yes, they had whatever they wanted but not at all in a look at me type way. I on the other hand was dirt poor. I mean, in the early 90s grunge was a blessing for me because I looked like that already. But her parents didn't care and we're always very welcoming. Her mom even took me to my first punk show. I guess it's true when they say cash screams and wealth whispers. The feeling that you'll always be living on the coattails of the family rather than making your own way in the world. I dated a girl in college that came from a very wealthy family. Texas oil money. Like, she flew from Dallas to Florida, where we went to school, in her daddy's business jet. That kinda rich. I think the biggest thing for me was how out of touch she was with everyday money issues. For example, someone smashed into my car in the parking lot and I was totally upset about it. She was like, "It's okay, you can just get a new one." She had no concept of how insurance or deductibles work and she didn't understand that I could not simply go out and get it fixed right away. Another example was that she wanted me to go to Miami to see a U2 concert with her. She had like front row tickets. I couldn't go because I had to work. She didn't understand that my boss would not give her it about how cool it would be to see U2. This was before they sucked. I dated a girl from a wealthy family when I was in college and I was very poor. The most frustrating thing for me was that our definition of a crisis was so different. From month to month I would literally not know whether I could afford my rent or be able to put gas in my car and she would be freaking out about some, to me, minor social issue or whether a store carried a fashion brand she liked. Definitely made things difficult and I had to remember that it's your perspective that dictates what is a crisis and what isn't. It was honestly a lesson I've tried to remember over the years. Girl or boy, their most realistic fear is that anyone who shows interest in them is doing so only because of their money. That's why the more well off someone is, the more low key they are about it. Those who aren't low key get devoured by human sharks very quickly. This is probably gonna get buried but I've always wanted to write it out. I was never sure how rich she was. I just knew her family had property in a couple places in the US and China. And this is also how I found out property in China is dumb expensive. When she went for the holidays, if she wanted to say, stay in Shanghai and then go to Beijing later, she didn't have to look at hotels or Airbnb. She just had to make sure she grabbed the right set of keys. It was weird. She wasn't dripping with designer clothes and drove a fuel efficient compact but just looking at where her family had apartment houses. I can only imagine. She was a super sweet, down to earth girl. Biggest heart in the world, very hard working, and acted like a child in a candy shop everywhere she went. I think the biggest strain came when we would eat together. For me, money was tight and the best way to stretch my college scholarship money was to cook meals in bulk. Before she met me, she ate out literally every single meal. At first, it took some adjusting and rebudgeting. Bless her heart, she understood and found compromises. She loved my cooking and would surprise me with groceries and then say I have to pay her back by cooking whatever she wanted. Every once a while she'd pick up the entirety of a bill that we were supposed to split but she always found a way to make sure I didn't feel down about it. I don't think she ever once bought me an expensive gift. Most things were either handmade or were very thoughtful, for example shoes I'd been eyeing for months but couldn't afford and she noticed them in my computer browser. I miss that girl. I hope she's doing well. She wasn't super rich, but she had a cushy media related job and a decent sized flat in the city center with modern deco and amenities. I just felt so insecure. Here's me, at the time, with manual labor job bewildered at the price of food and drink at this place she suggested. You were cute 4.50 a pint and you were cute 15 for a paper thin pizza looking thing. I could tell she was happy in life with a job she loved. Her life was set. We still had a good night in the end. We had a few drinks and the night had a happy ending. We talked for a while afterwards but it just kinda fizzled out. I often thought back to that date and thought I could be like her if I just put my mind to it and get out of the city dead end job. Now I'm studying at university for a chance at a career I can be proud of. I married a wealthy girl and it was weird at first. Luckily I make a 6-figure salary so I didn't feel completely out of my element, but I remember the first time her parents invited us to the country club in the summer. My, at the time girlfriend, wife asked me what I was going to wear and I was baffled. At that point I just wore jeans, t-shirts, flannels and gym shorts. I had a great collection of shoes but they were basically boots, flip-flops or Vans tennis shoes. I didn't play golf but I did play a bunch of disc golf with stoners. I had to go out, buy new outfits, learn proper silverware techniques and all that. Years later I've become very close with her family but at one point I had to stand up and draw a line in the sand which basically said I'm never going to pop my collar, wear dress shoes with jeans or join this country club. I'm always going to smoke weed, own a pit bull or two, and stay home on Sunday mornings. But I will make sure your daughter has the best life I can possibly provide her. Now we're very close and they feel bad because they're itty grandparents and money can't help them with that one. I once dated a girl who lived in Beverly Glen, near Bel Air. I lived in Canoga Park at the time, down in the valley. She would come down the hill and I'd take the bus to meet her in Sherman Oaks. Biggest struggle was getting some alone time at her house. What with her house manager, parents assistant, and caretaker around at all times. This was when I was 17. It lasted for almost a year. She had to go to college. Syracuse Ike. Edit. I guess this was interesting to some people lol. Man, I'm just always afraid that she gets the wrong idea. That I'm with her for what she has not for who she is. That her parents can't accept me unless if I learn the same as her. I almost never accept gifts from her which kinda sucks cause it makes her sad sometimes. Overall, it's great if you love her. My girlfriend, now wife, wasn't rich herself, but had very rich parents, both lawyers, one in family law, the other in corporate counsel, but they were pretty normal during her upbringing. The law careers and massive salaries came when she was a teenager. The toughest thing was that her parents would offer to pay for nearly anything, but later try to use that as leverage to control her when they didn't like what she was doing. She was college aged, so it happens a bit. Parents and teenagers aren't perfect. Things like stop paying for her car suddenly, or reneging on a trip that they offered to pay for and she booked, and was suddenly on the hook for the cost. It was certainly toxic from their end, and she kept falling for it each time. However, in her 20s once she was out of college and employed, she didn't need their money, so anything that was offered with strings attached, or had the potential to do that, she could just decline. They learned pretty quickly that manipulation via finances isn't a good way to foster a relationship with your daughter in her 20s. Her mom figured it out, her dad not so much. For unrelated reasons they got divorced, and her relationship is still very strained with her dad. It was good at first but then she got too far. But yeah, no, it don't matter anyway. She can rely on the old man's money. Had relatively high powered job, pretty high income, expected me to want to strive for the same, consistently harassed me to get a different job. I was, and am, happy at my job, and her type of work would be my hell. Edit. I was a software tester. She was a business analyst. Nothing. There was literally nothing wrong with dating a rich girl when I was poor back in college. I had a good major, was an athlete, and her family loved me. I didn't have money to give her flashy gifts, and she didn't care. If she wanted a Birkin, she'd just shop with her mom. I didn't have money to take her on fancy vacations or trips. We'd just go skiing at her parents' condo and I could always find a way to scrape up some money to get myself there and everything else would be taken care of. They didn't care that I wasn't an appropriate suitor at the time. I was just a college kid and must have done a nice enough job of presenting myself that they knew I'd figure it out. It was an awesome relationship. One of the least stressful relationships imaginable. We eventually fell out of love for other reasons. But I look back on that time fondly and we ended things amicably. Still on good terms with the family too. I dated this girl while in college. She never mentioned anything. She lived a simple life until I went to her family's place for Thanksgiving. Right off the bat, her mom did not like me. I respect everyone, but if you try me, I go hard. Her mom told me that she would feel more comfortable if she had my social security to do a check on me, to make sure I am not a felon or something. I asked her for her social security to make sure her money was legit and that if me and her daughter had kids, they wouldn't end up having grandparents in jail. We are not together now. Gift giving during holidays, birthdays. Being given a $600 camera while I give you a $50 purse or equivalent gift sucks a lot. You probably can't impress her with gifts. You being wealthy will likely not make her any more attracted to you. She's already secure. Being an original individual and a unique person is pretty much all you have to do. She has to like you for you. Their family will look down on you. Every event becomes a D-swinging contest that you can't afford the admission fee to. They don't understand the cost of money. I am dating a girl who has never wanted for anything. Her parents put $100k in her account one year just for spending money. She wants to go out to eat all the time. Constantly. I am trying to make my freelance company work, which has been profitable, but still not making that much money. And she's eating all of my money. We pay separately, but still. Going out every night to expensive sit-down places is ridiculously expensive. I'm at my wit's end about it. I like her, and she's nice, but I've literally almost gone broke just due to eating food out with her, and I'm about to do so again. I've spent at least $2k on food over the past month. I don't want to go out to eat. I can spend $10-20 in a week for food and be satisfied. She wants to spend $70 plus dollars a day for food. I had to eat rice and vegetables for weeks because I was so broke, because she wants to go to fancy dinners on other weeks. I have had a talk to convince her not to do this and why don't we eat it instead, and even offered to cook. But it's just super difficult to convince her to do this. Edit. Not rich but more than middle class. Meeting the people she knows. It's hard to talk about my average self when my audience is a collection of some of the most gifted, driven, accomplished people I've come across. For instance, the first friend she introduced me to, one had temporarily quit healthcare, traveled the world making a documentary and then spent 6 months delivering healthcare in some third world country, returning a few weeks before we met, and the other had entered into sports journalism and is very quickly climbing the ladder to one of the most reputable newspapers of the nation. After hearing them share these interesting stories about each other, it came to me. I'm sat there, trying my best to make I fixed up a rental property, then spent 4 hours a night studying every day of the past couple months. Sound interesting? This happens almost every time. Theoretical physicists, accomplished sportsmen, artists, and a lot of medical students, professionals. Then me, a glorified white van man with aspirations on something I should have studied 7 years earlier, instead of going straight into the workforce with a forklift license.